The coffin was already lowered halfway into the ground when a hoarse scream ripped through the quiet cemetery, cutting the air like a blade. Mourners froze. The priest stopped mid-prayer. Black umbrellas trembled in shaking hands as a garbage truck screeched to a halt beside the marble graves. A man in a faded orange vest jumped out, his boots sinking into the soft earth, his eyes wide with terror and certainty. He shouted again, louder this time, his voice cracking with urgency, "She's not dead. Stop the funeral right now." In that single moment, the world of a powerful billionaire fractured, and a truth buried deeper than the coffin itself was about to rise. If you believe that kindness, courage, and second chances can change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Kindness Journal right now. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. The funeral was meant to be flawless, just like everything else in the life of billionaire industrialist Ryan Caldwell. The sun hung high in the daytime sky, bright and indifferent, illuminating rows of white flowers imported from across the world. Wealthy associates stood shoulder to shoulder, murmuring condolences they didn't fully feel. Ryan stood apart, rigid and hollow, his dark suit perfectly pressed, his face carved into stone. The woman being buried was Elena Moore, his wife of 15 years, officially declared dead after a sudden collapse in their mansion. Doctors had confirmed it. Papers were signed. Time moved forward, whether his heart wanted it to or not, yet grief had not softened Ryan, it had sharpened him. He had loved Elena once, deeply, but love had slowly been replaced by distance, boardrooms, and endless ambition. In the final years, their conversations became rare and polite, like strangers sharing a roof. When she collapsed in the bright marble hallway of their home, Ryan had been on a call discussing mergers. He remembered glancing at her unmoving body, a flicker of fear quickly smothered by shock and disbelief. Everything after that felt mechanical. Ambulance. Hospital. Pronouncement. Funeral. The man who interrupted it all was Jonah Reed, a garbage collector who had worked the surrounding neighborhoods for over 2 decades. He wasn't supposed to be there. His route took him past the cemetery every morning, and he had learned to ignore funerals, grief, and silence. But that day, something felt wrong. As his truck passed the Caldwell family plot, he noticed movement that made his stomach twist. He had seen bodies before, accidents, tragedies left behind in alleyways. And what he saw now didn't look like death. It looked like shallow breathing, barely visible beneath the white satin lining of an expensive coffin. Jonah didn't think about money, power, or consequences. He thought about his own wife, Maribel, who had once been misdiagnosed at a clinic that rushed patients through like numbers. He remembered the helplessness, the anger, and the miracle that came from asking one more question. That memory fueled his legs as he ran toward the mourners, shouting words that sounded insane to everyone else. Security rushed toward him, hands already reaching for his arms, but Jonah didn't stop. He pointed at the coffin, his voice trembling yet firm, explaining that he had seen a pulse, a movement, something human that could not be ignored. The crowd buzzed with confusion and irritation. Ryan turned slowly, his eyes narrowing, anger flaring at the disruption of his carefully controlled farewell. To him, Jonah was just another nobody crossing lines meant to be respected, but doubt crept in, uninvited and persistent. Ryan remembered Elena's hands, always cold, even when she was alive. He remembered how quickly the doctors had spoken, how little they had explained. Something inside him shifted. Against the advice of aides and the protests of guests, Ryan raised his hand. The cemetery fell silent again. He ordered the coffin opened, the lid lifted under the harsh light of day. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elena's face was pale, her lips slightly parted. Then, unmistakably, her chest rose in a shallow, uneven breath. Chaos erupted. Medics were called. The priest stepped back, stunned. Ryan's knees nearly gave way as reality crashed into him. His wife was alive. Elena was rushed to the hospital, her condition critical but stable. Doctors later admitted a rare medical state had slowed her vital signs to nearly undetectable levels, and a rushed examination had led to a catastrophic error. The news exploded across media outlets within hours. Headlines screamed about the billionaire's wife nearly buried alive and the garbage collector who saved her. But behind the cameras and flashing lights, Ryan sat alone in a hospital corridor, his hands clasped, shaking with a guilt he could no longer outrun. As Elena lay unconscious, Ryan confronted truths he had buried for years. He realized how absent he had been, how success had become an excuse to neglect the person who once believed in him when he had nothing. He remembered mornings filled with laughter, afternoons spent dreaming, and how those moments slowly disappeared as his empire grew. Standing there in daylight filtering through hospital windows, he understood that money had never been the measure of his life. Elena was Jonah Reed avoided the attention as much as he could. He returned to his route the next day, the same worn gloves on his hands, the same smell of refuse clinging to his clothes. But Ryan didn't forget him. Weeks later, after Elena began to recover, Ryan sought Jonah out. He didn't arrive with cameras or reporters, only gratitude and humility. For the first time in years, Ryan listened to someone without checking his watch. Elena woke slowly, her return to consciousness fragile and emotional. When she learned how close she had come to being lost forever, tears streamed down her face. She asked for Jonah by name, wanting to thank the man who had refused to let her disappear. When they met, their exchange was simple but heavy with meaning. No grand speeches, just hands held tightly and eyes full of relief. Recovery was long and uneven, but it transformed both Elena and Ryan. They began again, not as a billionaire and his wife, but as two people relearning how to be present. They took walks in the daylight, unguarded and unhurried. Ryan stepped back from the relentless pace of his business, delegating control and reclaiming time. He funded reforms in medical diagnostics, not for publicity, but because no family should endure what they had nearly lost. Jonah's life changed too, though not in the way headlines suggested. Ryan offered him wealth, rewards beyond imagination. Jonah accepted help for his community instead. New clinics, better training, and support for workers often unseen. Jonah continued collecting garbage, proud of honest work, but now with a quiet knowledge that his voice mattered, even against power. As months passed, the story faded from the news, replaced by the next scandal, the next tragedy. But for those who lived it, the impact never faded. Elena carried a deeper appreciation for breath, sunlight, and mornings. Ryan carried humility, understanding that control is an illusion and love requires attention. Jonah carried proof that ordinary people can interrupt destiny. Just before the ending of this story, we have a special request. Please comment below with one word that describes how this story made you feel. On the anniversary of that day, under the same bright daytime sky, Elena, Ryan, and Jonah stood together quietly, not in a cemetery, but in a small community park filled with laughter and life. No speeches were made. None were needed. The wind moved gently through the trees, and the world felt, for once, exactly as it should be. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can come from the most unexpected places and that second chances are real, please take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. Your engagement helps spread these stories of humanity, and it means more than you know.